I'm Angela Mannino and a graduate of the Loyola College of Music 2002 vocal performance. And I'm back in New Orleans right now because the voice department brought me in for an alumni vocal recital, which was just a wonderful experience on Sunday. And from Loyola, I went and got my master's degree at Indiana University, and I was there for a couple of years. While I was there, I did apprenticeships with the Central City Opera and Santa Fe Opera. And while I was at Santa Fe, I auditioned for the Lyric Opera of Chicago, Patrick G. and Shirley Ryan Opera Center, and ended up getting into that program, and I was there for 2 years. Following that, I was able to be a part of the Lulu at the Met this year, and I was able to make my Met debut in May 2010. And then this past summer, I did my very first summer as a Feline Young Artist with Wolf Trap Opera, and that brings us to the present.
Well, before you came to music school, were you an opera fan, or did you sing opera at that point?
The way I always explain it to people is I started taking voice lessons in high school, and when you take voice lessons, more often than not, you're studying in the classical tradition, and you're studying with someone who is going to give you art songs and arias and musical theater songs as opposed to pop music. There are voice teachers, of course, who do that. So my voice teacher that I studied with in Metairie, her name is Sally Fisher, and she was a longtime member of the New Orleans Opera Chorus and a wonderful teacher in the classical tradition. And she, at the age of 15, started giving me the early Italian art songs, early German art songs, wonderful musical theater, things that are appropriate for a 15-year-old soprano, things like I Could Have Danced All Night and Oklahoma tunes. So from there, it was my decision. Well, I enjoyed doing musical theater and I enjoyed studying acting, so I felt a bit drawn to being a musical theater major at one of the top musical theater schools in the country, Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, going to one of the New York schools, Boston. But I knew that that wasn't really my passion. I'm not a trained dancer. So then I also thought about being a drama major, perhaps at UNO, which has always been well known for their drama department, also Loyola. But then when I thought about it, what I really, really aspired to do was to be a music major because I went to Mount Carmel for high school and I was surrounded by graduates of the Loyola College of Music. And that is what led me here. As I said, I not being a trained pianist in my growing up, I knew I needed to learn more about music and musicianship. I didn't know anything about music history, and I knew there was a great voice faculty here, so I knew I'd be in good hands. And then staying in town was also something that I was interested in because I really enjoyed the name for myself that I was building in the New Orleans music and theater community. Throughout my years at Loyola, I always remained very, very active in doing musical theater and even some straight theater. And I was very, very involved in the church music scene here. I had many church jobs, but for the last 2 years that I was a student here, I was the director of music at Monte Dolorosa Church uptown, and was very, very busy. So all of those factors are what led me to choose to come to Loyola and be a music major. Well, it certainly adds to some very interesting, makes you a very interesting person, and like makes people always go, huh, well, that's interesting. Wow, you're an opera singer, and they have lots of things to ask about that. Um, yeah, I would say that. As I know, for me, this lifestyle and this career path I'm very lucky because I know that my schedule changes from day to day, and that's really a blessing. I don't have the stress of, a 9 to 5 job and a huge commute. It's different all the time, and I don't, I don't pray for the weekend to come because my weekend really sometimes could be any time in the week, any time of the day. But it definitely keeps me being a musician. You have to go with the flow. I mean, live theater, anything could happen in a live performance. And when you, especially as a singer, when you carry your instrument with you all day long and you're using it all day long, you have to roll with the punches. Some days just aren't as good as other days, and I know for my personality it works because I just keep it very calm. Knowing when to quit is a very important tool with being a singer. Knowing when you're good and warmed up and how much you can sing, and then knowing that it's time to stop singing and even sometimes stop talking because you have to save your voice. Um, in social aspects, it's also knowing when if you like to be social and you like to go out or like to, drink or whatever, it's knowing when you can do that and knowing when you can't. And that is something that sometimes was hard when I was in my earlier 20s and in teens. When I was in college, it was hard because most of my good friends, wanted to go out, go uptown, and one of the biggest things even now is it's the not smoke in bars, it's the loud music and it's talking at a bar. I mean, that can just really do a number on your voice, especially if you have something important coming up. Um, Nowadays, it's very important to maintain very good physical condition with yourself because of all the broadcasts and the live and HD performances that we're doing in the theaters these days. The casting in opera is becoming much, much more about your physical type, even more than the voice type. So that's important. And also, so staying in good health, you simply cannot perform at your best as a singer when you have a cold. It's very simple. So taking good care of yourself, drinking a lot of water, eating great, not being around people who are sick when we do a lot of traveling, but so we have to use a lot of hand sanitizers and not touching, being very careful how often you put your hands in your mouth. Like I said, taking vitamin C, taking the airborne, emergency, zinc, all of that is very important. I would actually say that I've been thinking of myself as a business for quite a while now because those ideas were put into my head while I was still a student here. And even as a student here, I was very busy. I came to school during the day, but I always had other projects going on. I taught voice and piano at my house, so that was a business. I had church jobs to manage. I had weddings and funerals to sing, and then I was always rehearsing for some type of production, whether it was opera, a recital, a musical theater, or a theatrical production. So I was always thinking of ways to put myself out there. I was even in a TV commercial because there was a time when I was thinking, well, I want to get involved in ways where I can be in commercials and voiceovers and stuff like that. So, um, being self-managed from an early age has made it possible for me to maintain calm while not being officially managed in my opera career yet. I am not worried about that at all. I feel like when the right opportunity comes along, and I do feel like it will probably be within the next couple of years, it will come along. But so far, I'm doing okay. When you're in a program, like I've been in school and programs, you don't necessarily need a manager. But if you don't have somebody working for you, well, then you have to work for yourself. I mean, I'm always sending emails out, putting myself out there, getting auditions on my own, and writing to managers to say, when I believe that when somebody is ready to manage me and sees in me what they're looking for, and vice versa, when I see in a manager what I'm looking for, it'll happen. I'm very confident about that. While I was a student here, I was in the studio of Drew Montague, who has been and was from day one a wonderful mentor to me. It was a wonderful connection was made right from the start, and I'll always be very, very thankful to him for the foundation that he gave me while I was here. And he instilled in me a great musical foundation, wonderful technique right from the start. But it was his personality and the way that he approaches all of his projects, the way that he approaches his colleagues, and the way that people feel about him that really instilled in me, I want to be like him, and I want to approach all of my projects with a smile and with confidence, and I want people to want to be around me, because that's what he exudes. He always made me feel really confident about my singing, and that he instilled in me in that as a teacher. When I work with students, you always can get more out of someone when you help to build them up first. And I believe that is how he worked with me. He made me feel really good about the things that I was good at, and said, okay, now here's the things we can work on to make you better. But when you're starting out as a student in undergrad, you are a baby in this whole opera process. So many more years ahead of you of development, and so you just starting at a small level and doing just little by little, not trying to be a finished product at the age of 21. But he taught me that, Angela, you're going to have good days and bad days, and some people have more bad days than good days, but so what? One time I went to him, I had a less than successful audition, and he said, Angela, so you had a bad day. It's not the end of the world. He's like, you'll get them next time. I look at all of my former voice teachers, right from my very first one, Sally Fisher, who I worked with all throughout high school, then Drew Montague, who I worked with for 5 years. I was here for 4 years as an undergrad, and I actually did 1 year of graduate work here at Loyola. Then at IU, I worked with Professor Costanza Cucaro, worked with her for 4 years. And then even at Lyric Opera of Chicago, they have a voice teacher there. Her name's Gianna Rolandi. I look at all of those people as my voice teacher, because when you go back, I've continued to take lessons with all of them, because I've always had a very nice relationship with them. They have all infused me with different ideas, and they all have different things that they can help you with, but ultimately they're all teaching me the same thing, and that has been very lucky for me. Some people get conflicting, ideas from people. This one wants it more bright, this one wants it darker. I have been very fortunate. Everybody wants the same things, and that's good. The biggest piece of advice that I would give to people is a piece of advice that I often have to keep telling myself, and that is, you have to do what you do best. Often in an audition, we are excited about a piece. We want to sing that new piece, and 9 times out of 10, it does not go the way we want it to go in that audition. So stick with what you're good at. Sometimes I feel almost embarrassed to keep presenting, the same couple of arias. It's like, gosh, they've heard me sing this a million times. But that is really what you need to do. You need to present yourself, put your best foot forward. I'll never forget when I was a graduate student at IU, I was selected to sing on a master class for Carol Vaness, who's an American soprano. And I was trying to decide what to sing for her, and my voice teacher and my accompanist in my lesson said, you need to sing this piece because it's what you sing best. I said, really? And they're like, Angela, the first time that this woman is going to hear you sing, you need to sing what you sing best so she hears you at your best. And then maybe the next time you get to sing for her, you can sing something that you don't know quite as well, because then she has more to work with. It was a huge thrill for me to sing at the Met. It's a very overwhelming place, and there's a lot going on. This is a company that has 30 plus productions for their season. At any given time, there are 4 to 5 shows being rehearsed at one time. So it's very and it's a very confusing building, so you don't really, nobody gives you an official tour. What prepared me, though, for being at the Met was my past experiences. Obviously, being at Lyric Opera of Chicago for 2 years gave me the confidence, and I knew what it was like to be a member of a company in the United States that's what we call an A house. But nothing, there's anytime you're a first-time person at any company, of course you're going to have, a lot of nerves behind you. And the other thing I think that prepared me for the Met was that I was doing a role that I was comfortable with. I had been in the opera Lulu before. I had done my role. So even though I was nervous for the first rehearsal, I was about 5 minutes into rehearsal, I knew I was prepared. I knew it was going to be okay. Open mind, utmost respect, be prepared. You know, I always say there's very few people who know if you're singing the right notes, the right words, the right rhythms, but one of the people one of the people who knows is the conductor, because he has the score in front of him and he knows it better than everybody. He knows everybody's part. Um, Especially if it's a conductor that you're not familiar with, you know, you just have to be open and, like I said, very prepared and do your best and have you know, treat him with the kind of respect that you ultimately want him to treat you with, and hopefully you will develop a really nice professional working relationship, because he wants you to do what he wants you to do, and you want him to help you give the best performance you possibly can. So, and I've always been very lucky and had really great conductors. Of course, Lulu is a very difficult opera to be in, and we were really lucky at the Met. We had a wonderful conductor who was very clear, and also a wonderful prompter who was very clear. Maestro James Levine was supposed to be the conductor for Lulu at the Met, and unfortunately, with health problems, he had to pull out. So I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to work with him. Uh, I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with Maestro Sir Andrew Davis because of my years at the Lyric, and of course, he's the music director there. Oh, I'm trying to think if there's anybody specifically. I'd love to work with Maestro Placido Domingo. Of course, I'd love to sing with him too. I just love to meet him. I haven't met him yet. I'm not fluent in any of the singing languages, but I've been studying them since I was a student here at Loyola in classes. And when you're not fluent, yes, you have to do extra work. You have to, you know, check and recheck the pronunciation and work a bit harder with internalizing the meaning and the subtext, of course, which is sometimes even more important than the meaning. And I think that when you're not fluent in a language, you get really good at working on the subtext so that you can internalize it the way that someone would who's singing in their native language. I would like to make clear, though, that it is always my aspiration to become fluent. I'd say my first language I'd love to become fluent in is Italian. Of course, it usually changes with whatever language I'm working on at the time. There was a time when I thought, oh my gosh, I'm singing so much German, I bet I'll become fluent in German first. But, you know, when you're busy, it just things keep getting put on the long-term list as opposed to the short list of things that you have to work on in the present. It's a wonderful opportunity, especially as a student, to learn operas in their original language, especially the Mozart operas with all of the recit. When you're at a university that does them in the original languages, it's great because you start learning them at such an early age. Now, I've also been told, and I feel some connection with, when you're in undergrad and you have an opportunity to sing, let's just say, one of the Mozart operas in English, it's great too because it is internalized in you in your native language. And then when you go to take a look at it a couple of years from now and you're doing it in Italian, you approach it, you already know what's going on, you already have an idea of the style. And so I have both. I feel pretty strongly about both ways, actually. It's hard to say that I have a favorite opera because I've really enjoyed all of the ones that I have been in so far. I mean, I really have. And they've all been different. Um, and a favorite composer. Gosh, that's hard to say too because I would love to say that one of my favorite composers is Richard Strauss, but unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to be in many of his operas yet, in a large role. I've been in a couple of them in small roles. I adore being in Mozart operas. They're really successful for young singers. I had my first opportunity ever to be in a Rossini opera this summer, and to be honest, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed being in it and how easily I fit into the style, because I wasn't sure. I hadn't sung in that style before. Another favorite, and it's just because I'm a sucker for a beautiful melody, is Puccini, and I had a wonderful time being in Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. I haven't been in one in a while, and I really look forward to doing another one. But I enjoyed that because it combined two of my loves, opera and theater. Because that dialogue is not easy. You have to work very hard to get it across. That's very difficult theater. Working with Drew while I was here, Mr. Montague, working with him while I was here, he instilled in me a great admiration for Beverly Sills. And I'm very thankful that she is all over YouTube, because you can watch her, and what you can see about Beverly Sills is that she absolutely loved what she did. And she sings everything with a smile, and that really, really, really made a huge impression on me. From the very beginning, when I listened to early recordings of her and her voice just sparkled, and now when I'm watching YouTube and I see her at later parts of her career, and I see just what a superstar she was, really made a huge impression on me. I mean, I almost always point towards Beverly Sills when I think of who is the singer that got me really excited about learning this repertoire. I was also a huge fan growing up of Julie Andrews, and absolutely adored her voice and wanted to sing every song that she sang. Very, very inspired by her. Wow. Well, that's a hard question, because if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I could have projected the path that I'm on right now, I really couldn't have projected it. 5 years from now, I would like to see myself on the same path, but growing as a singer, growing in terms of venues, getting an opportunity to. I would love to be able to sing at all the major opera houses of America and perhaps even in Europe. Um, Two of the main things I would like to see in the next 5 years is that I'm still really enjoying myself and really happy in my career, and even more importantly, that I'm still singing really well, and that I'm still studying and on a healthy path as opposed to one that veers off course. Obviously, I would really like to see myself under management, and under happy management, one that I'm really pleased with and one that's going in a good direction. Advice that I would have for a young singer embarking in, may say, the middle of their undergraduate career is to not try to have the path of someone else, but really work hard to find what they do best and work at the pace that they know that they can work at. To work hard, to be focused, not have a good time, but to know how to manage their time well. To keep an open mind and to keep a positive attitude, because having a negative attitude and being jealous of other people is a huge waste of time, and energy could be put forth to getting their career started. Um, I would say to not be afraid and to look into graduate schools, look into young artist apprenticeships and programs in the United States, and even the ones that there are so many in Europe that they can do for the summer. To look into those, to audition, to get their name out as much as possible, to not to let any opportunity pass them up, to do lots of competitions the ones that are appropriate as your age requirements go, and just to have a really good time, to have fun, because if you're not enjoying yourself, then perhaps this isn't the career for you. I remember I was so inspired as when I was a student here. I never woke up one morning and said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my path. Just you have these moments of inspiration. I can remember being inspired when I came as a sophomore. They had a big Loyola at the Met is what it was called. And they brought in Anthony Latura, Ruth Falcon, Greer Grimsley. And that is a moment of inspiration for me because I saw where this career can take you. Because you start out very confused, and this is something I'm going to talk about in the talk today. You start out, you don't know these things unless you grew up in the arts, but as an undergraduate, you don't quite understand what a career in the performing arts is. So that was a moment of inspiration. Another one was attending the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions in Roussel Hall. I think I was a sophomore again, and just in attendance, sitting in the hall, hearing people, I was so inspired. It all of a sudden, it makes you just want to go learn every aria, and because you see somebody do it, and you see them having a good time, and you see them doing something that you aspire to do, and it was total inspiration. I sang Barbarina in The Marriage of Figaro a couple of years ago at the New Orleans Opera. And in the chorus, I'm sitting here chit-chatting with one of the choristers, female chorister. And, we realize we went to the same high school. We realize we know a lot of the same people. And then all of a sudden she tells me her maiden name. And my heart stopped beating for a second because I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe who I'm talking to. I'm like, when I was in 8th grade, I went to Mount Carmel and watched the performance of Annie, and you were the lead in Annie, and you have no idea how much you inspired me that moment, because she was a senior, so we never crossed paths in high school, but just watching her on the stage, reading her bio, I became immediately she inspired me to take voice lessons, because until I read that she took voice lessons, I thought voice lessons were for people who were terrible, not for people who were good. So, because whenever it came up, you should take voice lessons, I'd be like, that's for people who are delusional and think that they, need to be on Star Search, okay? But when I read that she was president of chorale and she was the lead in the musical and she took voice lessons, I was like, well, I want to do that too. And I want to be the lead in the musicals when I come to Mount Carmel, and I want to be the president of chorale. And sure, I was really thankful I was able to make all those things happen. There are probably some people who want to do that and it doesn't work out, but it did work out. So then to be chatting with her, because I didn't know her married name and I didn't recognize her, because she seemed like this tall statue. She seemed, still to this day, when I think about what 8th graders look like when I was a kindergartner, I'm like, they look like adults. They didn't look like children. And same with a senior in high school when I was still in 8th grade. They seemed like they were, they had careers and, So I'm sitting here chatting with her. Now our ages are very close, and I could not believe that I was speaking to someone who had inspired me to be where I am right now. So anyways, that's just pretty cool.